Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We have a pretty good bunch already gathered here, so we are going to go ahead and get started. My name is Janae Smith. I am the Managing Director of eHoldings, and I am supporting PJ Dick in their effort to communicate about the FNB Financial Tower project. We are going to be talking about bid packages, the old ones today. But before we get started and I turn it over to Teresa from PJ Dick, I'd like to go through a little bit of the housekeeping for today's meeting. And so I just want to again, thank you for joining us. As you noticed when you entered the room, they did mention that the session is being recorded. We will be posting that recording via the SmartBid system with PJ Dick. Registration will also be issued via bid addendum. And so that means if you register for this event and give us the okay, your contact information will be shared. Throughout the meeting, if you have questions and they can't hold on to them and Teresa is mid-sentence, please use the chat feature and we'll make sure to circle back to those questions at the end during the dedicated question and answer segment. If you're having technical difficulties on the call, you can simply use the chat feature and chat Chad Williams. He will try his best to rectify those issues. And I don't believe we have anyone joining us via phone today, but if someone is joining us via phone, simply press *6 to mute or unmute yourself and *9 to raise your hand. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you all for coming today. There will be a meeting poll at the end to make sure we've gotten it right. I'm going to turn it over to Teresa Giacomino with PJ Dick. Teresa?
Thanks, Janae. Teresa Giacomino with PJ Dick. As you can see, we're the construction manager. We're in association with Mascara and Macero for the project. And our moderator is Janae with the assistance of Chad. Next slide. So welcome everybody. I appreciate you taking some time to attend the pre-bid. This pre-bid was not mandatory, but I think it offers some helpful information for everybody that attends, as well as gives the opportunity to release some information after the fact. And for any M or W companies on the line, they can make a little 1-minute introduction at the end of the meeting to share their services, what they can offer, and in the hopes of helping the participation levels in the project. Our meeting objectives today, and we're going to go through more the pre-bid is about an overview of how to bid, what are some requirements in the bid forms, the bid attachments. I'm going to gloss over the project overview. I believe each of you have information on that. General schedule. Then we're going to get into the bid package scopes of work. We're not going to get into everything in detail, but my goal is to point out some important items in each of those scopes. I want to briefly talk about some union information, take questions, and then, like I talked about, the MWBE portion that we could have all introductions. Next, please. So reiterating the goals of the project, 30% minority and 15% women business participation. There is a goal for job creation, local inclusion, which is 20% new hires from the Greater Hill District minorities as a priority, and then going outside of the Greater Hill District. Overall workforce development goal is a 25% minority and 10% woman. Next. So here I'm going to gloss over the bid forms. What I've done is I've created a generic bid form that identifies multiple scenarios. Each of the bid packages that are involved in this grouping, as well as future groupings, will follow the same scenario. So just in case you've never bid with PJ Dick or haven't seen these types of forms, I wanted to walk through. So each bid package has a specific bid form. Ensure you're using the correct bid form. The bid package will be at the top as well as the footer. You want to fill in your company name. The base bid is a lump sum total value. So if you have a contract that's $200,000 or greater, you have to include the value of the performance and payment bonds. There's taxes and insurance and fees, freight, etc. So that's an all-in lump sum cost. For most of these packages, I will notice, make note, P&P bonds won't apply. Some of these have alternate pricing sections, unit pricing sections, and cost breakout. As with the base bid, the alternate prices, again, include P&P bonds, taxes, insurance. Sorry for the dog in the background. The unit pricing is for both adds and deducts in some pricing sheets, and others there are specific just adds. Adds and deducts. Then anything that's a cost breakout, that's just informational for us to gather some info as we move along in the award process as well as the subcontracting. Next. Okay, then the important portion at the very end is the M&W information for your inclusion goals. So the first two obviously is identifying the M&W participation from tier subs, suppliers, or any shop fabrication that you may have. The third bullet are the new hires, a percentage. The goal again is 20%, trying to identify what you would be able to reach. And then overall M&W participation in your labor workforce. Next. Also on the bid forms are places for addenda and signatures. I just want to make make a note to you that all the addenda issued will not apply to you, but you still need to acknowledge that you've received them. So I know we have addendum number 1 coming out tomorrow. It should provide all this information as well as some bid forms and scopes of work that weren't included in the issuance on the 7th. So you'll still have to list it even though it may not apply to your bid package. And then there's signatures and seals, the notary over in the last page. Next. So required attachments. I want to make a note. If you are an M or W directly bidding to get a subcontract, you need to be certified or in the process of being certified. So if you can submit your certification, if you already have it, that'd be great. If you don't have it yet and are in the process, feel free to put it on your letterhead that you are working towards a certification. The CSIP has required attachments for bidding, D, E, F, and G that you see listed there. I won't speak about Exhibit E in the following slides. It's just a signature for non-discrimination hiring acknowledgement. Next. So Exhibit D, the purpose is to illustrate your overall plan to achieve the CSIP goal of the 30 and 15. In the general scope of work, item 61, that'll provide clarification and the guidelines for those percentages. Next. Exhibit F, this is the manpower projection plan. This is to illustrate for the 20% minority participation. Again, further clarification in 61 regarding advertising when it comes down to that if you are an awarded subcontractor. Next. So then Exhibit G, this is something, at least for the bid, the section I highlight in yellow at the top, that's the section that will be completed with your bid. The rest of it is something that is a tracking and documentation purposes as we get into subcontract award and subsequently as you proceed with the job to demonstrate what you have accomplished. And again, scope item number 61 gives you that clarification, and there's also an Exhibit A in the bidding documents that shows the Greater Hill District geographic area. So the overview of the project, 26 stories, core and shell. The majority of what we're going to be talking about today doesn't have anything to do with the actual project itself. As we talked about, there are MWBE goals per the CSIP. Next. The project we plan to mobilize on site September, October, basically. So the trailers, when we talk about it, we'll be looking to get trailers sometime in September, I believe. The job goes all the way through early 2024. And the majority and heightened work is once the steel erection has happened. So anywhere from 2022 in January through 2024. Next. So these are the bid packages we're talking about today, just to ensure you're all signed up for the right ones, all the number one. So construction trailers, the trailer furnishings, trailer equipment, and trailer cleaning. Construction temporary fencing, the temporary sanitary facilities, dumpsters, surveying, the general carpentry, barricades, and closures. I have not released that scope of work yet. You'll see later in the slides. I intend next week. Tower crane and the construction hoist, those scopes of work, and I do believe we had 2 individuals sign up for this presentation. Those scopes of work will be issued out tomorrow. And there's general construction cleaning, as well as the last one that didn't make it on the slide, unfortunately, is the snow removal. So for the 01 bid packages, if any of you looked into the general scope of work, it could be rather overwhelming. So generally, we always say everyone has to comply with all the division 00 and 01. It is applicable only to your scope of work. So understand that most of those requirements will not apply to your subcontract. Examples are lead, one call because you won't be doing any digging for the most part, the BIM, the building permits, the field offices, fire stopping, joint sealants. I think it's pretty obvious if you read that lengthy general scope of work items that wouldn't apply to your scopes. If you do have any questions, feel free to always email that question to the particular person in the bid package and we'll respond. Just note there are multiple mobilizations for most of the people working on some of these packages. Our site safety program is a definite adherence that is required as soon as you enter the job site. Testing and inspections really only apply to the cranes and hoists. And there's also our subcontract template that you can take a look at in there. It is rather lengthy, and for some of the smaller packages in this grouping, there will be a version that will be truncated from that, but we haven't developed that for the purposes of the bidding right now. Next. So just an overview. Some of you may have seen this attachment as it applies to your scope of work. Perhaps some of you haven't. On the left-hand side, that is just the outline of where the building's going to go with our site fencing around the perimeter and entrances in and out of the gated area. The smaller box, kind of upper center, is a blow up then to the right that shows where the office trailer complex is. So those of you bidding trailers, that's the intended location to be set. You're welcome to go to the job, that location actually, and check it out to provide a price. And it shows you where the snow removal will be around in the parking area as well as down in the site area for the haul roads. Next. So in here, I want to get into the construction trailers. Chris Dunley is the project manager who wrote that. He unfortunately is off today. His email was in the invitation to bid for any questions, as well as you'll see it in a couple places during the presentation. What the bidding is, there's 2 different configurations to price, option A and option B. And we also include rental or purchase options in those pricing, as well as some add alternates. Next. So I grouped 01B through 01D in this one slide because key points to it are rather minimal. In the furnishings, quantities are identified for bidding. The actual quantities may change after the selection of the trailer configuration. The base bid is based on all those quantities, and then I ask for the unit prices so that as we add or deduct items, we'll know what those costs are right up front. Equipment, rather similar in terms of individual pricing. If you can only provide certain items under the equipment and or the furnishings, feel free to just write that in on your bid form and make it very clear. This way we could take a look at things in case there are companies that can't furnish everything that we need. We can try and package that up correctly and again, offer as many opportunities as possible, specifically, you know, for M&Ws or those companies that might not be, to try and add you to their participation. Then the trailer cleaning weekly, you need to provide your own water, and union labor is required. I know if I've spoke to some of you in the past through phone conversations over the last couple of weeks, I was unclear of how the labor would be addressed. And in talking to the labor unions last week in our session, the laborers do claim the cleaning. So union labor on this is required. Now, I do know, I think there's some cleaners that sign up with Teamsters, which is another union. I believe that would be fine as well, as long as they are a union member. Next. O1E through O1G. So the fencing, as we talked about the site plan, that'll be very important to pay attention to the site plan and the color coding. Probably think fencing would be simple. I complicated it with many alternates. We're not sure in some ways what the owner might do with some, not advertising, but offering the community to have artwork from the children in the area displayed and some fencing mesh hung on that. So the base bid is your standard chain link at 6 foot high overall. There's alternate pricing to go down to a mini mesh, as well as go up to an 8 foot overall height. There's an ad for immobilization for an additional 20-foot gate. Again, it's because we don't know, as the site changes and the crane and the work in and out, we might need an additional mobilization to put additional gate in as we proceed through the stages of the job. And there's many unit pricing items as well on the fencing. The temporary sanitary facilities, alternate pricing for providing waste and water holding tanks. So what that is, if you looked at the trailers and looked at the temp sanitary, we're not certain if we're going to be able to tie into the public utilities. We're working with different people to find out how that all connects. So we wanted to own an either scope of work to understand who would furnish what and or service. So that's the point of the alternate pricing on providing those tanks in case I can't get them from a trailer vendor. And then subsequently, the servicing of the trailer complex is a deduct in case we do tap into utilities directly. Dumpsters, the only real point I wanted to make here was that it will be a commingled dumpster. There are probably more than one on the site, and lead tracking will be required. So that means haul tickets weighted at the facility, sorted, and all the percentages will be required with each billing as we proceed with the job. Next, surveying. The surveyor shall be registered in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We are requiring CAD as well as PDF drawings to be provided. Those need to be shared with the rest of the subcontractors on the job. So that's why we're asking for both formats. On the bid form, we ask for many unit hourly rates so that as this basically becomes a service agreement, so you are billing and being paid based on those hourly rates. So the scope of work identifies assumptions to be made for your basis of your bid. Your bid will come in as a lump sum bid. And as I stated, the actual award will be based on that lump sum, but payments will be billed based on those unit rates, just to kind of be clear on how that surveying scope of work will go. Then through the remainder of the OM packages we have, as I talked about earlier, general carpentry, we're still developing that because we have some scopes that talk about protecting the elevator openings and shafts, some holes that'll be going on. The sequence of this job is tricky between the concrete as well as the steel, and I want to work that out with our superintendent well enough that when I put something out for each of you to bid on the general carpentry for that, it's well understood. The tower crane and the construction hoist will be issued tomorrow. General construction cleaning. So in the scope of work, I identified some supplies that will be requiring the subcontractor to provide, and it includes assumptions for the basis of your bid. So I think there's a certain quantity of days each week to create that basis of that bid. And then we ask for a unit cost for a day for labor. And the last one, snow removal. I identify the areas. I indicate that work needs to be complete by 6 a.m. The requirement is basically a snowfall that's about 1 inch or more that falls overnight. And the subcontract will be based on a per visit bid price. Again, that is shown on the plan where the haul roads are and the trailer complex parking lot. So in general, Addenda is issued via smart bid, same way that your notification of the bid went out. The RFIs, this is the section that there are 3 PMs. So as I said, Chris Dunley has the trailers 01A, Bill Hartle has the construction hoist and the tower crane, and I have everything else. So if you have any questions, use those emails to send them to us, and or we'll reply. If the question requires the response to be official, meaning it isn't just a slight clarification of what we have in the documents, but something that needs to be changed, we will address that in writing and officially issue it out in an addendum. Deadline for all questions right now is Friday, June 18th. Bid submissions, all bid submissions, however, go to Chris Dunley at that email address. It's on your invitation to bid as well as on every bid form. Those are due 10 a.m. Friday, June 25th. Before I get into anything about the unions, and then just some general information at the end, are there any questions anyone would like to raise about your package? Like I said, I do understand I breezed through a lot of them. Okay, I'll move on to the signatory unions in case some of you haven't seen recent presentations. PJDIC is signatory to the carpenters, the laborers, cement finishers, operators, and iron workers for rebar only. So for these 01 packages, really the applicable ones are carpenters and laborers as well as operators. So what does that mean for a non-union sub? In order to directly subcontract with PJDIC to provide labor on the job, you either need to be a signatory to the unions for those particular unions above, or have a project agreement in place. And we've been having sessions for those with the unions. They can be found on that Lower Hill Redevelopment website for information in case any of you had missed those or are interested in looking at them. We have one more left, I believe, tomorrow, and that is with the iron workers, which wouldn't apply to any of you on this site, on this call. Next. On the next slide, I'm just giving you some contact information for those unions. So when we publish this information, you have it handy. Basically, you can talk to Tom or Dave or the trade union directly. Set up a meeting to discuss those agreements if you need to pursue that. Well, we've just been trying to get across to everybody that joining a union does have some financial requirements, and your business model may not be suited for that, and we understand. And one of the things we get asked is, where do I get my union labor from? So that would be the union halls. And then there's also, in case you have employees or want to employ people, we have, through the Builders Guild, there's pre-apprenticeship programs, as well. The union halls, once you join, have their own programs. Next. So right now, just to on the phone, in case there's people who have multiple packages beyond the 01 that are of interest, we have upcoming pre-bid sessions on the 14th, the site prep and underground, the 15th, the MEP and the fire protection, as well as the concrete. On the 16th, there are also 2 waterproofing and elevator, and the structural steel on the 17th. And that wraps up all the June 7th issued bid packages. On the right is just a summary of all the contact people and your email addresses with the bid package they're associated with. And on the left, that's our current pre-bid session we're discussing now. So when this gets issued, I know it's a wealth of info on the screen. You'll be able to take a look at it. And if you all registered for this meeting, you know where to find the registration for the other ones. Pre-registration is required. All right,